All right, let's dive into something I think a lot of us can relate to. Picky eating. We're going to unpack this guy that says it can turn mealtime battles into bonding experiences,
Mm.
whether you're, dealing with picky kids or maybe other family members, or, hey, even yourself. One thing that really caught my eye, it even goes into like the psychology behind those, I will not eat that moments.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It really emphasizes that picky eating. It isn't just about stubbornness. There are actually underlying reasons, and understanding those is the first step to making meal times more enjoyable for everyone.
Okay, so let's break down these reasons a little bit. I mean, the guide mentions four main factors, right?
Exactly. It breaks them down into sensory sensitivities, fear of the unknown, that need for control, and limited exposure to a variety of foods.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
When I was reading through this, I was thinking about how kids' taste buds and senses are still developing. So something that might seem like a mild flavor or texture to us
Right.
could be like totally overwhelming to them.
Right.
Like I'm picturing a kid like encountering a mushy tomato for the first time.
Ah.
The texture alone could be a total turnoff. And honestly, I mean, there are certain textures I still can't deal with as an adult.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And the guide actually goes into the neurological basis for this, like taste aversion, and explains how repeated negative experiences with a certain texture, it can actually create a strong neural pathway that makes a child just avoid that food. So it's not just, being difficult. There's an actual biological component at play.
That's really, really interesting. It makes you think twice about like, forcing a kid to finish everything on their plate, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And that actually leads perfectly into the five-step plan the guide outlines to tackle picky eating. And these steps are really focused on positive strategies,
Yeah.
rather than turning meal times into like this battle zone, which I appreciate.
Okay, all right. I am intrigued. What's the first step
Yeah.
in this plan of attack?
So step one is all about positive reinforcement. So instead of getting frustrated when a child refuses a new food, it encourages you to celebrate even the smallest victories.
Okay.
Like, the guide gives an example of giving a high five for trying a single bite of broccoli. The idea is small wins lead to bigger changes over time.
So it's about praising effort, not just results.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can see how that would create a much more positive atmosphere for sure.
Precisely, yeah. And it's about, shifting that focus from what they didn't eat to what they did try. Even, the tiniest little nibble.
That makes a lot of sense. It reminds me of that saying, like, catch them being good.
Yeah.
Okay, so no pressure, no battles, just lots and lots of encouragement. What's next?
Step two is building what the guide calls a yes list. So it's about starting with, the familiar, with the foods your child already enjoys, and using those as a foundation for introducing new things.
I'm curious about how that works, like in practice. Could you give us an example?
Certainly, yeah. So imagine a child who loves pasta. You might start by, adding a few extra veggies into their favorite sauce.
Oh,
They're still getting the comfort of the pasta, but also getting a little, sneaky dose of nutrition.
I like it. That's a really good idea. It's like you're building a bridge from the familiar to the unknown. Okay, so we're starting with those beloved favorites. What's step three?
So step three focuses on getting those picky eaters involved, like in the food process. The guide suggests letting kids help pick out produce, like at the grocery store, or, choose a new fruit to try.
Ooh, that's a clever way to turn, a chore into a fun, like, learning experience.
Yeah.
Makes those new foods, less intimidating. What else does it suggest?
It also emphasizes letting children help with meal preparation, even something as simple as, washing vegetables or stirring ingredients. It can make a big difference.
Yeah.
When kids are involved, they feel a sense of ownership
Mm.
and pride, and that can make a huge difference in how they approach mealtime.
I can definitely see that working. It reminds me of this one time when my niece was visiting, and she was super picky. But I got her involved in making pizza, like letting her choose the toppings and helping spread the sauce. And you know what? She ate almost the whole thing.
That's fantastic. That's a perfect example. It really illustrates how involvement can foster that sense of control and excitement, around food.
Yeah, I love that. All right. So far, we've got positive reinforcement, the yes list, turning our kitchens into like kid-friendly culinary labs. What is step four?
Step four, this is where things get a bit more strategic. The guide calls it the sneaky chef approach.
Okay, sneaky chef. I'm listening.
This is where we get a little, shall we say, creative in how we present those healthy foods. The guide gives some great examples, things like, pureeing veggies into sauces so they're totally undetectable, or making like sweet potato fries that look like regular French fries. It's all about camouflage.
Yeah, and the guy does acknowledge that this sneaky chef approach
Yep.
might not sit well with all parents. Some believe in total transparency with their kids. And so it suggests offering like a small taster of the, hidden ingredient, alongside the dish.
That's a good point. It's about finding that balance between, encouraging healthy eating, but also respecting a child's autonomy.
Right. And ultimately, I think it's about making those healthy foods more appealing and less intimidating. Okay, so we've got positive reinforcement, our yes list, our mini chefs in training, our secret agent chef skills. What is the final step in this picky eater plan?
Step 5. And this one's crucial. Patience and persistence.
I have a feeling that this is where a lot of us struggle, myself included. It's so easy to get discouraged, when you're putting in all this effort and you're not seeing those immediate results.
Oh, absolutely. But the guide emphasizes that consistency and role modeling are key. It might take time for a child to come around to a new food, but if you keep offering it in a positive way, they're more likely to eventually try it. And remember, we're aiming to build healthy habits for a lifetime, not just for today's dinner.
So true. And I love that emphasis on role modeling. I mean, we can't expect kids to be adventurous eaters if we're not setting a good example ourselves, right?
Exactly. The guide really highlights that, children are constantly watching us and learning from us. So, if they see us enjoying a variety of foods, they're more likely to be curious and open to trying new things themselves.
Yeah, that's a powerful reminder for all of us. Lead by example. Okay, this 5-step plan is jam-packed with actionable advice. And I know there are even more nuggets of wisdom in this guide that we will unpack next.
Yes, you're right. We've only just begun. There are a few additional tips that I found particularly insightful, especially around creating a more positive and engaging mealtime experience. Welcome back. All this talk about food is making me hungry.
Me too. And we've got more to explore in this deep dive. We laid out that 5-step plan, which is awesome. But the guide also mentioned some additional tips.
Right.
What stood out to you?
One thing that really resonated with me was the idea of offering variety.
Okay.
And not just in the types of food, but in how it's, prepared.
Okay.
Think about it.
Yeah.
If we ate the same thing, day after day, we'd get bored, right?
That's so true. I know I get stuck in my own food routine sometimes.
Exactly. And it's the same for kids. So keeping things interesting by, introducing new foods regularly, even if it's just a new type of fruit or a different way of cooking those veggies, it can make a big difference.
So it's not about finding that one magical food that your picky eater suddenly loves.
Yeah.
It's about keeping things fresh and exciting.
Precisely, yeah. And this kind of ties into another important tip from the guide, which is limiting distractions during meal times. So that means turning off the TV, putting away phones, creating a space where everyone can focus on the food and each other.
That makes a lot of sense. I know I'm definitely guilty of scrolling through my phone while eating sometimes. It's like we're so used to being constantly stimulated that we forget to actually savor the moment and actually enjoy our food.
It's such a common habit, these days. But the guide really highlights that when we're distracted, we're less likely to, fully taste and appreciate our food. Kids are especially susceptible to this. Creating a calm and focused environment can make a huge difference in how they experience meal times.
And I bet that kind of environment also leads to more conversation and connection during meals, which is never a bad thing. Family dinner as a mindfulness exercise. I like it.
Exactly. Yeah, it transforms, mealtime from this chore into this shared experience. And speaking of shared experiences, the guide also suggests embracing a spirit of food exploration, which I think is really interesting.
Ooh, tell me more about that.
It's about, encouraging curiosity and trying new things feel more like an adventure rather than a chore. So instead of presenting, new foods as something to be feared or endured, we frame them as exciting discoveries.
It's like you're turning mealtime into a culinary treasure hunt.
Yes.
What a great way to shift the energy and make it Make it fun for everyone.
Precisely. And this leads to another crucial point the guide emphasizes, which is focusing on the long term.
Okay.
Building healthy eating habits takes time, and it's important to remember that we're playing the long game here. There will be days when your kid refuses to eat anything but crackers, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
I needed to hear that. It's so easy to
Mm.
get caught up in those daily struggles and feel like we're failing.
We all have those moments, yeah. But the guide really reminds us that we're not just trying to, get our kids to eat broccoli today. We're trying to instill healthy eating habits that'll last a lifetime. And that requires, a lot of patience,
Yeah.
consistency, understanding.
So true. And I love the emphasis on role modeling. We can't expect kids to be adventurous eaters if
Mhm.
we're not setting a good example ourselves.
Mm.
You know, what we do speaks volumes.
Exactly. And the guide highlights that, children are constantly watching us even when we don't realize.
Right. Actions speak louder than words and all that.
Exactly.
So if we want them to be adventurous eaters,
Mm.
we need to show them what that looks like. We need to be willing to try new things ourselves, to make healthy choices, and to approach food with a positive attitude.
I completely agree, yeah. It's about embodying the values we want to instill in our children. And it's not just about what we eat, it's also about how we talk about food.
Oh, that's such a good point. I've definitely caught myself, like complaining about healthy food in front of my nephew, like not exactly setting the best example.
It's easy to fall into those habits. But the guide reminds us to, be mindful of the language we use around food. So, instead of labeling things as gross or weird, let's focus on, the positive aspects, like, how colorful a dish is or how interesting a new spice smells.
It's about framing things in a way that sparks curiosity rather than disgust.
Exactly. And I think this applies not just to, parents, but to anyone who interacts with kids. We all have a role to play in creating a positive and supportive food environment.
Well said. But all this talk about positive reinforcement and creating a fun, adventurous atmosphere around food, it's making me wonder, are there situations where these strategies like might not be enough? What about kids who have like extremely limited diets or who are struggling with like food-related anxieties?
That's an important question. And while this guide offers a lot of helpful strategies, it's important to remember that it's not a substitute for professional advice. So if you're dealing with a situation where your child's picky eating is causing, health concerns or significantly impacting their daily life, it's always best to consult with a doctor or
Ah.
a registered dietitian.
That makes sense. They can help assess the situation,
Yeah.
rule out any underlying medical conditions,
Yeah.
and develop a more personalized plan.
Exactly. It's important to remember that every child is different and there's no one-size-fits-all approach to picky eating.
This conversation is making me realize that picky eating is a lot more complex than I initially thought. It's not just about getting kids to eat their vegetables. It's about understanding their individual needs,
Mhm.
creating a positive and supportive environment, and being patient and persistent in our efforts.
I completely agree. And I think this guide does a really great job of highlighting those psychological and emotional aspects of picky eating, which are, which are often overlooked.
It's not just about what's on the plate. It's about what's going on in a child's mind and how they perceive food.
Yeah.
It's about creating a sense of safety and trust around mealtime.
Well said. And that actually makes me think about the control aspect that the guide mentions. Sometimes picky eating can be a way for kids to exert control,
Yeah.
in a world where they often have very little.
That's a really interesting point. It's like
Yeah.
their food choices become a way of expressing their independence.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why it's so crucial to approach, picky eating with empathy and understanding. It's not about battling for control. It's about working together to create a positive food environment where everyone feels heard and respected.
I love that framing. It's not us versus them. It's about being on the same team, working towards the same goal, a healthy and happy relationship with food for everyone involved.
Beautifully said. Yeah.
Welcome back to our deep dive into picky eating. I
Yeah.
feel like we've uncovered so much already, from the science behind taste aversions to like, all those sneaky chef tactics I'm definitely going to try at home.
It's been such a fascinating exploration. And, one thing that really strikes me is how this guide emphasizes a real shift in perspective. Picky eating doesn't have to be the source of constant stress and frustration.
Right.
It can actually be an opportunity for
Yeah.
growth, for connection, and for creating a more positive and joyful relationship with food.
That's such a refreshing way to look at it. It's not a
Right.
battle to be won. It's a journey to be shared.
Exactly, yeah. And one thing that really stuck with me is the guide's emphasis on focusing on the long term. Building healthy eating habits, it takes time. And it's okay if progress isn't always linear.
That's a really good point. We talked about patience and persistence before, but it's worth reiterating, especially for those of us who tend to get a little, shall we say, overzealous in our
We've
effort.
all been there.
Yeah.
But the guide reminds us that change takes time, especially when it comes to, ingrained habits and taste preferences. There will be days when your kid only wants, peanut butter crackers, and that's okay. We pick ourselves up, we learn from those experiences, and we keep moving forward.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think that applies to adults just as much as it does to kids. I know I've definitely been guilty of getting stuck in my own like, food rut,
Hmm.
eating the same things over and over again.
I think we all have, but
Mm.
but embracing this spirit of food exploration that the guide talks about, it can open up like this whole new world of flavors and experiences. It's never too late to expand our palates and try something new.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be like this drastic overhaul. Maybe it's just trying a new type of fruit each week or
Mhm.
or adding a new spice to
Yeah.
your usual recipe. Small changes can lead to big shifts over time.
Precisely. Yeah. And remember, it's a journey, not a race. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate those small victories, and don't be afraid to ask for support from friends, family, or even a therapist if needed.
That's such great advice. It all comes back to that theme of self-compassion that we touched on earlier.
Exactly. It's about treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, recognizing that we're all, works in progress, and hey, maybe in the process of expanding our own palates, we can even inspire those around us to do the same.
I love that. It's like a ripple effect of culinary curiosity. This whole deep dive has really gotten me thinking about my own approach to food and how I can be a better role model, not just for the kids in my life, but for myself as well.
I feel the same way. It's a good reminder that food can be so much more than just fuel. It can be a source of joy,
Mhm.
connection, adventure.
Absolutely. And that's a beautiful message to
Yeah.
to end on. So to our listeners out there, whether you're a parent navigating the world of picky eaters or an adult trying to break free from your own culinary comfort zone
Yeah.
or simply someone who enjoys a good meal, I hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought.
What's really fascinating is how this guide has given us not just, strategies, but a whole new perspective on picky eating.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be a battle. It can be an opportunity to learn, to grow, to connect,
Yeah.
and to create a more positive and joyful relationship with food.
So well said. And as always, we want to hear from you. What resonated with you most from this deep dive? What are your go-to strategies for dealing with picky eaters? What new food are you going to try this week? Share your thoughts, your experiences, and your tips with us. Let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, happy eating.